Most women think the secret to blowing his mind is all about technique, but the truth is, the difference between good and absolutely unforgettable has nothing to do with what you do first, and everything to do with what you don't give him right away. When it comes to creating unforgettable physical experiences, anticipation is the quiet but powerful force that turns something good into something mind-blowing. It's the art of building tension before the big release, and it works because the human brain is wired to crave what it can't immediately have. When a man knows what's coming but can't quite get it yet, his imagination kicks in, his senses heighten, and every touch suddenly feels 10 times more intense. This is why rushing to the main event can rob the moment of its magic. Anticipation forces him to stay present, to hang on every movement, and to invest emotionally in what's happening. It's the slow burn before the explosion. Think of it like stretching a rubber band. The more you pull it back, the more energy you store, and the bigger the snap when you finally let go. In the same way, building anticipation stores sexual energy in his body and mind. The trick is not to dump all the sensation on him at once. You start with light, almost innocent touches that barely register as stimulation. Maybe it's a brush of your fingertips somewhere unexpected, or the feeling of your breath hovering close to him. These early moments are not about giving him maximum pleasure immediately. They're about letting his body know that pleasure is coming, while giving his mind space to imagine how far you'll take it. The psychology behind this is fascinating. Anticipation activates the dopamine system in the brain. Dopamine isn't just about pleasure, it's about wanting, craving, and motivation. When you give him little glimpses of what's ahead without fully delivering, his dopamine levels spike because his brain is actively chasing the reward. This creates a feedback loop where the more you delay gratification, the more his brain associates you with intense desire. By the time you give him what he's been waiting for, the build-up ensures that the release is far more explosive than if you had gone straight for it. The physical aspect of anticipation is equally important. You can use time, touch, and even stillness to keep him guessing. Changing the pace, sometimes moving, sometimes pausing, forces his attention to stay locked on you. A pause is not a break, it's a silent countdown in his mind. He doesn't know whether you'll continue in 1 second or 5, and that suspense makes the eventual touch hit harder. Think of it as tuning an instrument. Each moment of stillness tightens the string until it's ready to produce the most powerful note. Eye contact can play a surprisingly big role here. Holding his gaze while your touch slows down or hovers just shy of where he wants it makes the anticipation almost unbearable. It's not just his body reacting anymore, it's his mind, his ego, and his emotions all in the mix. Your expression can be playful, knowing, even a little wicked, and that expression tells him you're in control of the tempo. This turns the experience into more than just a physical act. It becomes a shared psychological game. Another layer to anticipation is teasing with contradictions. Give him something intense for just a second, then switch to something featherlight. Let him think you're about to give him everything, and then pull back just before the point of no return. Every time you do this, you're stretching that rubber band tighter. He's chasing you in the moment, desperate for you to finally cross that invisible finish line, and that chase is exactly what makes the final moment so much more intense. True anticipation isn't accidental, it's intentional and controlled. It's knowing when to slow down, when to pause, when to give a taste, and when to retreat. It's making him want it so badly that by the time you finally give in, his entire body responds with a level of intensity that he didn't even think was possible. And it all starts with resisting the urge to rush, understanding that sometimes the slowest path to pleasure is the fastest way to something unforgettable. The connection between the mind and the body during intimacy is what transforms a physical act into an unforgettable experience. Pleasure doesn't exist in the body alone. It's amplified when emotions, thoughts, and sensations align in a way that makes both people feel fully engaged. When you bring genuine energy, enthusiasm, and confidence to the moment, it doesn't just change how he experiences you physically. It changes how he processes the entire encounter in his mind. That mental involvement is what can make even simple touches feel extraordinary. Men respond strongly to the emotional signals you send while you're with them. If your touch is hesitant or distracted, he will feel that energy instantly. But if you approach with focus, intention, and a sense of enjoyment, that message is just as powerful as the physical stimulation itself. Confidence in this context isn't about being bold or aggressive, it's about being comfortable in your role, owning the space you're in, and making him feel like you're there because you want to be, not because you have to be. That authenticity speaks directly to his mind, and his body follows. Breath and rhythm also play a big role in deepening the mind-body connection. The way you breathe can subtly communicate arousal and excitement, which encourages him to feel the same. Your pace, whether slow and sensual or deliberately varied, creates a sense of sync between you. When his body starts matching your rhythm, it becomes a form of non-verbal communication that makes the experience more immersive. Even small adjustments, like changing pressure or pausing briefly, are magnified when he feels that those changes are intentional and in response to him. This connection goes beyond the purely physical because it taps into psychological arousal. A man doesn't just want to feel good, he wants to feel wanted. That emotional component is powerful because it turns the act into an affirmation of his desirability. Using your voice to express pleasure, whether through a soft sound or a whispered word, engages his mind in a way that physical touch alone cannot achieve. He's not just experiencing sensation, he's processing meaning, interpreting your reactions, and feeding off the idea that he's responsible for your excitement. The more present you are, the stronger this effect becomes. Being present means focusing on the moment rather than rushing toward a goal. Your hands, your eyes, your breath, and your expression all work together to keep him anchored in the experience. This level of engagement tells his subconscious that this isn't just an act, it's an intimate exchange where both of you are invested. That message travels straight from his mind to his body, creating a loop where mental stimulation enhances physical pleasure and physical pleasure feeds back into mental arousal. It's in this loop that the deepest and most lasting impact is made, making the memory of the moment just as intense as the moment itself. The balance of pressure and pace is one of the most underestimated yet transformative aspects of physical pleasure. It's the contrast between gentle teasing and firmer, more focused stimulation that keeps a man's body in a heightened state of awareness. When everything is delivered with the same pressure or the same rhythm, the body adapts and the intensity plateaus. But when pressure and pace are intentionally varied, every change feels fresh, unexpected, and electrifying. This isn't about random movement, it's about controlled, purposeful shifts that guide his arousal to higher peaks. Pressure plays directly into how nerve endings respond. Light pressure can awaken the skin, causing subtle tingles that signal the brain something is happening. Firmer pressure, on the other hand, stimulates deeper tissue and creates a fuller, more consuming sensation. Alternating between the two prevents his body from settling into a predictable rhythm, which is key to maintaining excitement. If you stay too soft for too long, his body may crave more intensity. If you stay too firm, the nerves can become desensitized. Moving between these levels allows you to constantly reset his sensitivity, so each touch feels fresh and powerful. Pace works in a similar way. A slow pace builds suspense and draws him deeper into the moment, making him aware of every movement. It's like stretching out a story so that each chapter pulls him in further. A faster pace, especially after a slower build, fulfilled floods his nervous system with sensation, often pushing him closer to the edge. By switching between slow, deliberate movements and bursts of speed, you create a rhythm that his body struggles to predict, and unpredictability is what keeps his arousal climbing. The real magic happens when pressure and pace are combined in a deliberate pattern. You might start with a slow pace and light pressure, just enough to tease, then gradually increase the pressure while keeping the pace steady, allowing the sensation to deepen. Then you could suddenly slow the pace again, but maintain the pressure, creating a moment of intense focus on one sensation. These controlled shifts keep him mentally engaged because his mind is always waiting to see what comes next, and that mental engagement amplifies every physical feeling. This principle also taps into his psychological response to contrast. When the body experiences a sudden change in sensation, whether it's going from soft to firm or from slow to fast, the brain releases a fresh wave of chemicals, including dopamine and adrenaline, which heighten pleasure. This is why moments of change feel more intense than a constant, unchanging rhythm. It's not about rushing him toward the finish. It's about crafting an experience that holds his attention and builds layer upon layer of stimulation until the final release becomes almost inevitable. By mastering the interplay between pressure and pace, you're not just creating pleasure, you're creating a rhythm that keeps him on the edge and makes the final moment far more explosive than it could ever be with a single, steady approach. Variety in sensation is one of the most powerful ways to keep a man's body and mind engaged during intimacy because it stimulates different nerve endings and prevents the body from adapting to a single type of touch. When the same motion, pressure, or technique is repeated for too long, the body begins to predict it and the intensity naturally diminishes. Introducing changes, whether through touch, temperature, texture, or technique, keeps his nervous system in a state of pleasant suspense. It's this unpredictability that makes every moment feel alive and every touch feel more intense than the last. Incorporating hands, lips, tongue, and even subtle changes in temperature is not just about adding more elements. It's about engaging multiple sensory pathways at once. Each part of the body transmits slightly different signals to the brain. The warmth of breath is not the same as the softness of lips, and the gentle drag of fingertips carries a different message than the wet glide of the tongue. Switching between these sensations forces his brain to constantly adjust and reprocess the input, making the entire experience richer and more layered. Temperature can be a surprisingly effective part of this. A warm breath or the brief touch of something cool can shock the senses in a way that heightens awareness. These shifts in temperature work because they interrupt the body's expectations, jolting the nervous system and drawing his focus back into the present moment. Even small changes, like alternating between the heat of your mouth and the cooler touch of your hands, can make him feel as though his body is experiencing something new every few seconds. Texture variation also plays an important role. The firmness of a palm against him feels grounding, while the soft tip of a finger tracing along his skin feels teasing. Combining them creates contrast that's mentally and physically stimulating. This combination of firm and soft, fast and slow, warm and cool is like composing music. Each change in sensation is a new note that adds depth to the overall experience. The key to making sensory variety work is flow. Sudden changes can be exciting, but they need to feel intentional rather than disjointed. Transitioning smoothly from one sensation to another keeps him immersed and prevents the moment from feeling mechanical. It's about letting one sensation fade into the next, so he is constantly being drawn into a new layer of pleasure without ever fully knowing what will come next. When sensory variety is applied with intention, it doesn't just stimulate the body, it captivates the mind. His focus shifts from simply feeling pleasure to anticipating what you'll do next, and that anticipation magnifies every touch. By engaging multiple senses and constantly introducing new sensations, you create an experience that feels endlessly fresh and leaves him unable to detach from the moment, no matter how hard he tries. Emotional amplification is the layer that turns physical pleasure into something far more profound and memorable. While the body can respond automatically to touch, the mind's involvement is what deepens and extends that response. When a man feels admired, wanted, and appreciated in the moment, his arousal doesn't just stay in his body, it spreads into his thoughts, emotions, and even his self-image. This emotional charge is what makes the eventual release feel more intense and more meaningful. It's not only about stimulating nerve endings, it's about making him feel like the center of your attention and desire. One of the most powerful ways to create this emotional layer is through verbal expression. Soft whispers, playful compliments, or even simply telling him how much you're enjoying yourself sends a direct message to his brain that he is giving you pleasure. This triggers a powerful psychological feedback loop. The more he believes he is pleasing you, the more aroused he becomes, and that heightened arousal feeds back into the physical sensations he's feeling. It's not just ego, it's biology, because the brain's reward systems are wired to respond strongly to affirmation and validation. Body language is equally important in amplifying emotions. The way you look at him, the subtle expressions you make, and how you move all communicate desire on a deeper level. A lingering gaze can be as stimulating as a touch because it reinforces that you are fully engaged and present. Your expressions, whether playful, teasing, or intensely focused, give him a constant stream of non-verbal messages that keep his mind locked on the moment. Even small sounds can carry enormous emotional weight. Gentle sighs, changes in breathing, or a low moan are primal signals that bypass rational thought and hit directly at his instincts. They tell him without words that what he's doing is working, and they encourage him to stay connected and invested. These sounds also build rhythm and momentum, making the entire encounter feel more alive. Another aspect of emotional amplification is responsiveness. When you subtly adjust your reactions to match his pace or pressure, you create the feeling that the experience is uniquely tailored to him. This personalized feedback tells him he's not just part of a routine, he's inspiring something specific in you right now. That sense of uniqueness deepens his emotional involvement, which in turn makes the physical sensations hit harder. The real power here lies in merging emotional cues with physical touch so that the two become inseparable. He's not just feeling the sensation, he's feeling your excitement, your approval, and your desire. That combination is what pushes him past the threshold of simple pleasure into an experience that feels intense, overwhelming, and unforgettable. When his mind and emotions are just as stimulated as his body, the final moment is amplified in a way that pure technique alone could never achieve. The edge technique is about guiding a man right to the brink of climax, then easing off before allowing him to cross that line, and it's one of the most reliable ways to make the final release dramatically more intense. This method works because it builds sexual tension to its highest point, then interrupts it, forcing the body to retreat slightly before building again. Each time this cycle happens, his arousal doesn't fully reset. It starts from a higher baseline than before. By the time he's finally allowed to finish, the build-up has reached such an overwhelming level that the release becomes explosive both physically and mentally. Physiologically, edging plays on the way the body responds to stimulation over time. As a man approaches orgasm, his heart rate rises, breathing becomes heavier, and muscle tension builds. Stopping or slowing at this stage doesn't erase that tension, it keeps it stored in the body. When stimulation resumes, his arousal level spikes much faster because the body is already primed. This creates a compounding effect where each round of build-up intensifies the next, leading to a far more powerful climax than if the process had happened only once without interruption. The technique requires attentiveness and control. You have to be tuned in to the signals his body gives, changes in breathing, muscle tightening, subtle sounds, or even the way his hips move. These cues tell you when he's approaching that edge. Pulling back too soon can feel like a tease that never pays off, while going too far risks pushing him over before you want to. The sweet spot is in catching that moment right before the point of no return, slowing the pace, softening the pressure, or shifting to a lighter touch so his body hovers just below the threshold. The psychological aspect of edging is just as powerful as the physical. When you control how close he gets, you're creating a dynamic where he's anticipating the peak but can't dictate when it happens. That lack of control heightens focus and makes him more responsive to every touch. His mind becomes locked on what you're doing and when you'll allow the next wave of intensity. This kind of mental engagement keeps the experience from feeling routine and turns it into a prolonged, suspenseful game. Repeating the edge 2 or 3 times can be incredibly effective. Each round leaves him hungrier for the release, while his body continues to store up tension. The final time, when you finally let him cross that threshold, the sensation is amplified by the contrast between restraint and indulgence. Muscles release more powerfully, contractions last longer, and the psychological satisfaction is deeper because he's been craving it for so long. This technique transforms a standard climax into something far more memorable, leaving him not only physically satisfied but also mentally captivated by the way you took him there. When you bring all of these elements together, anticipation, the mind-body connection, the balance of pressure and pace, sensory variety, emotional amplification, and the edge technique, you're no longer just giving pleasure, you're creating an experience that lives in his body and his memory. It's the difference between something he enjoys in the moment and something he'll replay in his mind long after it's over. Every touch, every pause, every shift in energy becomes part of a bigger story you're telling through sensation. By mastering these skills with confidence and intention, you're not only giving him explosive physical release, you're also forging a deeper connection that makes you unforgettable in his eyes, his mind, and his body.